Welcome to the SFCC Library video tutorial on how to check a citation generator. You've probably been warned by your librarian or an instructor that citation generators make mistakes and that you need to double check them. But do you know how to do that? In this video, we'll give you some tips on how to do that. To check the citation, you must find the appropriate formula for the source that you're citing and then compare it to the generated citation. You also need to check the formatting of that generated citation. So to figure out the formula, first you need to know what you're citing. You need to identify the source type. Are you looking at a magazine? Was it a journal? Was it a book? Was it a video? Please note that a lot of times we want to say that the source type is a website, but that's not always the case. An example is if you're looking at a YouTube video, that's a video that you're citing, not a website. That video is found on a website, but the source type itself is a video. Next is your access point. How did you interact with that source type that you were using? Was it online or in a database? So for example, that YouTube video you saw online. Or was it something that was in print or something that you interacted with in real life? For instance, was it a lecture that you heard while sitting in a classroom, or was it a newspaper that you were holding in your hand? You then combined your source type and your access point to find the formula that you need to use. So that YouTube video would be a video online, a class lecture in real life, a journal article in a database. Now you need to find that formula, and so here's some places you can look for formulas online. I personally like the Williams College citation websites. They have some for APA and MLA. Here is Williams' online guide to citations. I happen to be on the APA site, and on the left-hand side, they ask you to choose what it is that you're citing. So if I was going to cite an article, I would then come down and say, oh, it was a magazine article I'm citing. Here's the formula I would want to check, and here's even an example of what it would look like once you've plugged in that information, along with some formatting rules in between. In addition to the Williams online guide, you can look at the official websites for APA and MLA. You can also go to the OWL Purdue website, which has a lot of information, or you can even just Google it to find the formula. Once you have your formula, you're going to need to compare that generated citation to that formula you found. So let's start with an APA example. Let's say we're citing this article, which is a magazine in a library database. I can click on the citation button. I'm going to use APA 7th, and I would copy and paste that into my project. This is what I will need to double check. So here's the citation. I will go back to the Williams guide and I will look for how to cite a magazine online or on a database. Notice I'm going to then start comparing it. Oh, I start with the author's name. I have the author's name. It's now going to go to a publication date. Oh, I have a year. I have a month. I have a day, but I don't have a day in the formula. So I'm going to try and keep that in mind. I need to double check that somewhere. Then I have the title of the article. Yep, that's looking about right. Then the magazine title. Okay, well, this is italicized, so I'm assuming that's the magazine title. I have a volume number. Yep. And then I have an issue. Wait. I don't seem to have an issue number in my example, so in the generated citation. So I'm going to need to go back and check that. I have page numbers, and then I have a DOI or a URL. Well, I have a URL, so that's good. Well, let me go back and look and see if I have an issue number. So when I go back to the article and I look here, I'm going along, here's my volume number. Oh, there is an issue number. So I will need to add that to update the citation. Okay, so I know I need to add the issue number, but I still have that question about whether or not I need to include the day in my publication date. So let me see what the APA official website shows in their example. So here's the official APA site. Okay, oh, well, this is good. They have 2 authors listed, and I have 2 authors, so that looks about right. It's got an ampersand, so that's great. Oh, and in their example, they have a specific day. So I think I'll just leave the 27. That looks like it's acceptable. And then I'll notice, oh, this is how they included their issue number. So when I include my 12, I'm going to put it in parentheses like that. So this is how I would use the formula, but then also kind of look at an example just to make sure that the way I've plugged in my information is kind of how the official website plugs in their information. So now I need to update that citation. Okay, I left the 27 and then notice I included my 12 right here. So now that I've looked at the formula, I need to check the formatting. So once again, we're going to stay with this APA example for this magazine article. There's some common formatting things that APA uses. So those are the ones that I always check for. Example, for names, they do the last name and then they just use initials for the first and middle names. And that appears to have occurred here. So I'm feeling pretty good. Next, for dates, it's a year, comma, month, and day. Months are written out. Well, doesn't look like November's written out, so I'm going to need to update that. Next, when it talks about titles, it says I need to capitalize only the first word and proper nouns or adjectives in the title and subtitle for the article. Okay, so I've got a capital D here, but Day of the Dead, well, that's a proper noun, so I'm going to have to capitalize that D in dead. Is not, Mexican Halloween, those are proper nouns, so I'm going to have to capitalize those. It's a day where death is reclaimed. All right. I also need to italicize the publication or website title. Well, America is the magazine title. That is italicized, so we're good. Once again, everything else seems to make sense. There are other formatting rules. These are just the most common ones that I tend to run into. If you want to know more about other formatting rules, please check out the official APA style website. So here's what my updated and final citation would look like. I've written out November, I've capitalized the proper nouns in the article title, and I've added that issue number. Please note, I would write out the entire URL. I just didn't for space saving in this video. That was an APA example. Now let's do one for an MLA example. In this example, we're going to be citing article that appears on a website. So this is one of those instances where my source type actually is a website because this was content created just for this website. Okay. I went to MyBib, I chose an article online, I dropped in the URL, and it gave me this citation. This is the citation that I will now double check. So here's the generated citation from MyBib for MLA 9th. I go to the Williams College site. I look at article online. This is the general formula for MLA 9. And I'm going to start looking at it. Author, last name, comma, first name. When I go up here, wait, mailing address, that doesn't look like an author's name. I'm going to definitely have to go back and check and find an author. Next, the title of the source in quotation marks. Okay, so this is when they say title of the source, they mean what specifically was I looking at. This is the title of that article. Then they said the title of the container is in italics, so I have a container name there. Other contributors, not often something there. Version, I don't have any volume or issue numbers here, so that's kind of what they mean by version. A publisher, there might be a publisher website, but there's some rules about that. A publication date, I definitely don't have a publication date here, and that seems pretty important. So I'm going to want to go back and add that to my list of things to check on that website. And then my location, which means the URL in this instance. But let me pull up an example again and see how it should really look. Okay, so here's my author's name, all right, the article title. Oh, well, their title of the container, mine is a URL, theirs is an actual name. So let me double check that on the website as well. Their publication date has a specific order that it goes in. So I want to keep that in mind if I have a publication date. So let's go back to that source and see if we have some of them. Okay, so the first thing was, who's my author? And I'm going to look, I don't see an author listed underneath the article title. As I scroll all the way down, I don't find a specific person's name, but it is coming from the National Park Service. So I'm going to assume that they are an organizational author, and I'm going to list the National Park Service as my organizational author. In addition, I'm then going to say, well, what is the name of this website overall? I mean, it doesn't say www.nps.gov. It says National Park Service. So I guess in this instance, my organizational author and my container title are exactly the same. So I'm going to swap those things out. Now I also wanted to look for a publication date. So once again, I'm going to keep scrolling and then, here we go. Last updated June 8th, 2021. So I'm going to want to plug that information in as well. So here's how I update the citation. Notice where it's red, I plugged in National Park Service. I wanted to update the title of the container, which was the title of the whole website, so National Park Service. And then I included a publication date right there. So now that I've updated the citation for the formula, let's check that formatting. MLA has slightly different rules sometimes than APA. So for instance, with their authors, they don't use initials, they write out the whole thing. But in this instance, we're using an organizational author, so we're looking good. My article title has to have quotation marks around it, which it does. I need to italicize the name of the whole website or the whole container, and that is italicized, so that's great. Here's my publication date. They have day, month, year, and it says 5 months that have 5 letters or more are abbreviated. Well, June only has 4, so I don't need to abbreviate that, so I'm good. And then, of course, I have my URL at the end. If you're looking for additional formatting rules, go to the MLA's official website to find out more information. But this one's looking pretty good, so no formatting changes needed here. Those are some tips on how to check your generated citations using formulas and following the formatting rules. Citations are very tricky. Doesn't matter if you're creating them from scratch or if you're using a citation generator. You're bound to have questions. Please reach out to the library for any help that you might need. Our contact information is on the screen. Good luck.